All right, welcome everybody. I am here with my good buddy Dirty, Steven. He is currently still on active duty down in San Antonio. That's all I'm really going to say. But we were stationed together for quite some time. So this is episode 38 of What's Your Why? And I really appreciate him coming on the show. I think you'll get some pretty good content from him. But first, before we start off, we're having some, what'd you say it was? Traveler whiskey, as you can see.
Chris Stapleton's signature whiskey made by Buffalo Trace Distilleries. Cheers, everybody out there.
Cheers, guys. That's pretty good. Shit, that's really good. But this is episode 38, like I said, and I just did episode 37 probably 2 hours before I got here. We've been kind of bullshitting and reminiscing. I'm actually on a vacation right now, visiting my family with my kids, and I figured I'd get a couple of podcasts in, and I had told you guys that I was going to have some pretty good guests on, so appreciate you being on it. Before we get started and kind of go through the whole run of things, give me a little background on yourself. Before you do that, I've known him, so I talked about this on my last episode with Kale. I got to Dias in 2009. And so I've known you guys for 15 years. I knew Kale for 15 years as well. And the type of shit that we did was a lot of good times. But to get it started, go ahead and give me a little background, where you're from, what you did in the military. Obviously I know, but they don't. And just, quick little synopsis,
Okay, so Steven Sanchez, actively serving. Everybody calls me Dirty because the last name, go figure, it's what it is. I tried to get away from that many times, but it stuck with me in boot camp to tech school to first duty station, so on. So everybody knows me as Dirty, call me as Dirty. So if he refers to me as that, that's kind of why. Grew up Corpus Christi, Texas, small town, right outside of Corpus and Sinton, and it just wasn't really a lot there. Decided to go to military. Joined at 18, and from there went in as aircraft structures background. Was at Dias a majority of my career.
What, 15 years?
Like 18 years.
Oh, God.
So the B1 has my heart and soul. C-130s too, but mostly the B1. And, been to Korea, been to Germany, did a year-long stint in Afghanistan as an air advisor, training Afghans, and then ultimately came here to San Antonio, where I'm at now. Have a wife, family, kids, doing the things out here, and just still serving as long as they'll have me, and then see what the chapter is after that and progress.
All right, so you kind of mentioned you joined because there was really nothing else out there. And I've been to Sinton. I used to go down fishing in Corpus Christi, and you pass through Sinton, you go through some little towns, and Sinton has what, like 500 people, 200 people, maybe 5 people? I don't know.
Maybe like 3 stoplights, a Whataburger, an H-E-B, and the world's largest squirrel at Anki D's. But
what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Fletcher, who's also down in South Texas at Rockport, he gives me a hard time. Every time he goes, he snaps a picture of the world's largest squirrel, supposedly.
Yeah. But why did you join? Because, small town, you could have been farmer, you could have done, some crazy stuff, oil fields, but why did you join?
So my why, basically cut and dry, and disclaimer too, by the way. So everything that comes out of this is from Steven Sanchez, and by no way, shape, or form is any affiliation with the Department of Defense or the U.S. government.
Touche. I don't think I've ever done that, but yes, thank you.
That is my disclaimer. But for me, the bottom, and why's changed, and it changed for me over the years. But my why initially is plain and simple. Is like I was poor. Like I grew up humble household, humble beginnings. Mother and father didn't graduate high school, so it was just kind of on me. I was first to graduate high school. First to go on to do something, and still currently the only one to really serve in the military and still active as for long as I'm doing it now. Be 24 years this year. But yeah, my why was like I had no other choice. My dad, he kind of put it on me to join the military, and I was like, nah. I couldn't even fathom somebody yelling at me all the time, because I every time mom would yell at me, I would just shut off. But
Yeah.
my thing was is just I had to get out of there. I had to see the world, do other things, and it's given me a lot to be grateful for. So initially that was it. And then over the years, my kids became my why, and it drove me to stay in longer, to do what I did, and I just love what I did. I love fabrication. I love working on planes, and it's just that became my why after that.
So you mentioned 24 years, and I see that you said like what your whys were after, but after your first tour, and I'm doing the math with the kids and all, you didn't have a family at that time. So your first 4 years, or did you join for 6 when you first joined?
I joined for 6, my initial goal.
So after your first 6, what made you say, fuck it, I'm going to stay in longer? Because, 6 years, you're primed to, there's jobs out there for, making more money, doing contractor overseas or any of that stuff,
So after my first 6, and mind you, I had been to Korea, I went to Germany, and my son was born, and I met somebody there. We weren't married, and I ended up having my son, and they came here to San Antonio. And for the entirety of my career, I was trying to get to San Antonio because of my son, and the only way back was to go back to Dias in Abilene. So that pushed me back, and at that point, I had to be a father. I had to provide and do all the things. So I was like, I'm gonna keep going, and that kind of pushed me to where I was. But after 6, I did 4. 4, you're already at 10, and you're already halfway there, and that's how they get you. And I said, you might as well just keep going. So that's kind of what that led to.
For the audience that just is about to watch Kale's and then this one, Kale said the exact same thing. Once you hit 10, you can't go back. Like, why would you even want to get out after that? And that's one of the things that he talked about. And I haven't brought this up to anybody else in my interviews, but you came in pre 9/11. You came in pre-war. You were still peacetime, right? Because you came in 2000.
I was actually in my 2nd week of boot camp when I guess the shit hit the fan, and I remember it vaguely. I was sorting hangers by packs of 25 in the utility room downstairs, and we got moved to our day room, and everybody was scrambling around there in San Antonio at Lackland. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know the towers were hit. We were in the dark for like the first 4 hours until RTI came in, told us in tears in her eyes like what happened, because she was a female. Not that matters, but she was like very emotional, as anybody would be, and she just kind of told us what happened. And then it wasn't until the week after we actually saw video of the planes hitting the towers, and it was like, all right, like this is going to be the first days of the rest of my life, and it was game on after that, and the grind of getting aircraft ready to do what they do. So,
as I was sitting here and listening to his story of when he joined or how many years he had, like, this is going to be now a personal plug, not personal plug, but a personal question that I'm going to be asking along with all the questions that and the transitions that I usually use, because I haven't really asked anybody about 9/11. Like, I think people know my story. I was deployed during 9/11. You were in basic, like, holy hell. And I know a lot of people that I've interviewed that I've never asked that question, but I probably should, because that's a big part, especially in today's environment where literally 2 days ago, yesterday, there was a terrorist attack. So we kind of have that, I came in 98, so I was already in 3 years when 9/11 hit, and it was a renowned sense of like patriotism, like we're doing this for a reason. And I'm pretty sure after you saw that video, you were like, holy hell, right?
Yeah, it was definitely, it turned my life around to think, because I was a young kid. I was 18. I didn't know what was going on. They said trade center buildings. I was even like, what is that?
What are those?
Like, what is that? And mind you, we grew up through all that. I know we just talked about it. We didn't have cell phones. Like, we weren't as in tune to the world as this generation is now. So after the fact, like, all my family, aunts, uncles, everybody was like, oh my gosh, is he going to go to war? Is he going? Is he out there? And I was like, no, I'm going to my first duty station where my life is 12-hour shifts every day for the next 3 months, working to get planes going.
Ramstein?
Well, no, to Dias.
Dias.
Dual phase Doc B1s, because that was one of the paramount vehicles of laying hate down over there. But that's all I knew. And I tell my kids, is like, my entirety of my career up till now was war. Like, that's all we knew, and that's all the mentality we were raised in. So now, as a senior or veteran in being in the service, you see all the younger individuals coming up, the bright minds, and it's like, hey, like, I hope you're ready, because when we got thrusted into all this, it was a whole different mentality.
Yeah, I think the only other person that I discussed this with was Jason, who was on my podcast, and he had a different mentality as well, because he started out in the Navy, went Army, then became a Green Beret. So listening to, I don't know if you've watched his podcast, but holy hell, it's just, and we prepare for that. That's what we joined for, and that's what unfortunately happened for 20 plus years. And I feel like hopefully it doesn't swing that way again, but that's what we did. Like, if they called upon us, I'm pretty sure I would be back in a heartbeat. You're in right now, so for you, it's a whole different feel,
Oh yeah, 100%. And like, I know you see like some of the books in there. One of the best books that I've read is by Sebastian Junger. It's called Tribe, and it talks about that mentality, like, you build with your brothers and being deployed and all the things, and you're just so ingrained off that. And I could be the first one to tell you, anytime a deployment or something that came up, like, I was the first to raise my hand, because you long for being involved. And then that type of atmosphere, that type of brotherhood, that connection you miss it. And I'm sure you can attest for it being out, like, you miss that brotherhood, like, so much.
Absolutely. In previous podcasts, I've talked about that, losing your identity. And you lose your identity when you get out. Stay in. No, yeah. I jokingly say that. I do miss it, but I'm glad that I'm out. But he's in a whole different, state of mind with what he's doing and how he's doing it. So, like, I applaud that you're at 24. Could I have done it? Yeah. But I just needed to go. I just needed to be done. In different circumstances, obviously.
Yeah, and I think it's different too with everybody. Everybody comes and you have to make those tough decisions. And you're not wrong about losing your identity, because that's what you've known for your entirety of your career. For me, this being my identity and like living it, breathing it, being all about it, from all the stuff, accoutrement that you acquire, the partnerships, the brotherhood that you make, like, it is a very fabric of your being. And to just, step away from that, it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people, and I'm not going to deny that it is one thing that eats at me every day, because we have a shelf life. We all have a shelf life when you're serving, and I know my shelf life is coming soon. I just hope that the next venture moving forward is going to provide me that rewarding feeling, and also still contribute to the fight, whatever shape or form that it may be.
And I really do hope that you get that contribution aspect and that reward aspect. It's hard. I worked at the boneyard for a while, and it was rewarding to an extent, but it's not the camaraderie that you have with your brethren and the brothers in arms. That's absolutely a code and a profession that most people can't do, and that's what makes us unique. Now, I'm going to reel it in a little. At 20 years, you could have been like, I'm done, I'm going to go do something else. But why did you stay past the 20 years, and why do you continually stay? Because as I've mentioned before, with people who retire, there's just a day where they wake up and they're just like, I'm done. Obviously, you haven't hit that day where you're like, I'm done. I mean, he's got a pretty good job right now, which, is an envious job. It's really nice. He gets to kind of see and touch things that most people won't ever understand. But where have you been in your point where you're just like, I still love this. I still, what is your why past 24?
Well, to be fair, there's been numerous times where like, you know what, I'm done. Even after the 20-year mark. Prior to that, you're like, hey, I'm done. But you can't let your emotions kind of get the best of you. You can't let something that happens on one day be a bad day and make up for the rest of your life. Make decisions on emotions. But after the 20 is like, I still love doing what I'm doing. And it goes back to the people. Like I made, and I know you too, and like that's, coming here to San Antonio, not only where you're from, I could be in Alaska or somewhere and you could still hit me up at the drop of a dime and I'd be like, I got you. I got a bed, I got something that you can sleep on, like I got you. And it was that camaraderie to know like after grinding for so long and seeing what everybody else goes through, I was like, you gotta have those individuals that have been there and done that to be like, hey, like I know what you're going through, I got you. And it was the people that pushed me to keep going, and I still loved what I did, even now, to where I'd keep going as long as I can to continue that for everybody out there.
We have some mutual friends that were a group that we were, and I still talk to them. Probably not as often as he does, but I mean, there's a couple that I talk to probably more than he does, and vice versa. And it's crazy because I want to interview them as well. Clemens, I know you're gonna watch this. I want to interview you. We need to get Fletch on here. I think Fletch would be a good one too. I might have to travel down to Corpus. Oh shucks, go fishing and do it on a boat, But I appreciate that perspective. With I got you, you got me. No matter what, like this is what we're all about as family. I mean, we haven't seen each other in 3 years now, and those 3 years, we're definitely, it's been like 3 years, and we never miss a beat. We can sit here and talk and shoot the shit and just have a good time, Now, taking it into a whole different aspect, I've mentioned this before where I usually do like what were the good times, but I kind of want to talk about, in your 24 years in, do you have any regrets? Like, is there anything that you're just like, because my next question to you is going to be, would you change anything? So there's the regrets that you absolutely regret, and then there's the things that you could change and maybe kind of gear it a different way.
I do. Like, I do and I don't. Because I like to say everything up to this point has led me to the person I am today and everything that I've experienced. I know when I was in Germany, I've spoke on this to a lot of people and let them know, like, hey, early in my career, coming up through the ranks, I made the decision to drink and drive. I got in trouble. It's a thing. You're in Germany. German beer is great. German beer is really great. But I made those mistakes. I made a decision. Decisions were made, and it set me back. It set me back a lot. I don't know how further along I would be in my career had I not done that. But at the end of the day, it gave me something to relate to individuals that do make those mistakes and that do get into trouble or go through things. And it made me a stronger individual, and it made me like re-vector to like, hey, like you're not above the law, and you can get reeled in to like, hey, everything that you're doing right now can stop. Like it can be taken away. And it was from that point on that, it was clock in 7 a.m, coveralls on, get to work. And that was kind of my mentality. It was like, I had to make my name right, and I had to make it right for the Air Force because I was given an opportunity by the Air Force. And I didn't want to squander that. And I couldn't go home. I couldn't go back to Sinton. He was like, oh, yeah, your son's a failure. Like, he tried and then ended up getting out or getting kicked out or had animosity to it. It was all on me. So, it bootstraps and just get to work. And that's all it's been.
Yeah, I definitely get that. That's admirable to think that, that's kind of a regret, but you know exactly how it changed you and how it made you refocus, like revector, as you said. Now, with that regret, what about change? What would you change? Is there anything that you were like, this little thing I would change just a little bit to kind of gear it a different way?
Honestly, I don't think there's nothing I would change. Only because aside from that one instance, like I probably wouldn't have made that decision to get behind the wheel. But ultimately, everything that's come in my life is a life lesson, and it just, you take it with a grain of salt, you take it in for what it's worth, and you just keep trucking. And that's going to happen to everybody out there. To everybody in life, you're going to go through trials and tribulations. You're going to be put in tough positions. But, somebody was telling me, and I'm not trying to quote anything crazy, but, the good Lord isn't going to put you in a position where the good Lord won't save you. In so many words, there's actual Bible quote for that, but I probably slandered that. But it's a learning. It's a learning process, and I have really nothing to look back on to take that away from you.
Yeah. Now this next question is geared towards what you enjoyed. Now, a little background. Whenever I first met Dirty and some of the other people in the shop, and I'm even gonna mention Joe Fuller. These motherfuckers, like, I walk into the shop and I'm not how they were. They were, and when I say they, Joe, we could talk, Clemens, and all those guys were little mini pig pens. That's what I'm gonna go with. Like, they would walk in the shop, clean uniform, and instantly dirt gravitated to them. And when I got to Dias, these guys thought that I didn't know how to work because I was fucking press, boots. These dudes talk so much shit.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't think you remember this, but I remember having to do a repair on some hydraulic lines underneath the B1. And these guys, don't close that.
Yeah. You remember the first thing I said when I first met you was at the Christmas party? I met this guy first time at a Christmas party. He comes in. When I first saw him at work, it was that week, we had a Christmas party, and he had these chloroform boots from Korea. And it was like all pressed nice, and we called him Mr. Shiny Boots. And so at Korea, when we first got to sit down, I was like, oh yeah, you're the guy with the shiny boots. And he was like, oh, it was like, I got them from Korea. I was like, nah, I'm not going to lie, because I'm ate up like that too. I was like, if I had the opportunity to buy them, I probably would buy them too. And then we downed like a whole bottle of soju, and the rest is blackout from there. But
it was that aspect, and it was also when they saw me bring that bottle of soju, they were like, "Oh, what? This dude knows how to get down." Yeah. But then it goes a little deeper into. They still didn't have any confidence in me in knowing that I knew sheet metal, and so Joe made me do a repair, or they geared me to do a repair. And they cut this hydraulic line, and it's about an inch thick, inch and a quarter thick, underneath the aircraft. And as you cut it, if you're not careful, this thing will spray hydraulic fluid everywhere. We all know this.
Yeah.
And I'm in my press uniform. I don't even take it off. Like, everybody's like, you need to wear coveralls, blah, blah, blah. But what they don't know is I had, at that point, 10 years of experience. Great experience. I knew what the fuck I was doing, but because of my presence, because of how I look, because of my presentation, they were like, this guy doesn't know how to fucking do anything. And I remember Joe and everybody out there watching, waiting, and I'm cranking away at cracking this, and I hear the crack. And they didn't know that I had a rag in this pocket. I grabbed the rag, put it over, crack, boom, and I just let it all drop to the ground. Like, one little drop came down. And they were shocked. And they were shocked in the sense of, this motherfucker didn't get dirty. And that's all they waited for, was for me to get fucking dirty. And I was never the guy that got dirty. I was always in my uniform working out in these fucking pig-ass damn aircraft. And everybody's like, how are you not dirty? I just was never dirty. Like I wasn't Clemens, who's a little pig pin. Like literally, like there's dirt just floating everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where these guys judged me by that cover. And to me, that was a fun time. Along
Like,
with every-
one of us. Like he knew what he was doing. And I mean, Clemens too, he was the one that like sought it out and didn't really care, because that man, he came in, like he drank better than the rest of us and would still show up 7 o'clock ready to go, like boots laced, ready to rock and roll. Always made it to get the first CTK toolkit to go out and work on aircraft. But he was a lot too, and everybody. I remember, and to kind of answer your question, is like that too is what I miss, is that camaraderie, and then that I guess professional challenge between each other, like that competition, professional competition. And I deployed to Bagram, and I remember coming back to Afghanistan, and I remember coming back, and all the big repairs and stuff was all on him. And I was like, wait a minute. And I think you were doing Viper Super, you were running the show, and he was getting all the big repairs. I was like, nah, man. I was like, I'm back now. Like, you can have your 130 stuff. I would have my B1 stuff. But yeah, it was that healthy competition, because back then, and with I hate to say kids, but the younger generation now is like, we did it to do it, because you got in the job, you wanted to make a name for yourself, you wanted to be good. Like, you wanted to be dependable and good. And so we would fight for the big jobs every morning. Our hands were up, like, hey, I got that, or I got that. Or we would move names on the board to be like, no, he's not doing that. And we'd be like, you want him to do that? I was like, I'll do that. And we knew, because it was a 12 hours worth of work. You knew what you were doing, and at the end of the day, or in the back end, you would get comped for it, like a day off. But we worked, and he was, he's my brother. We just got off the phone earlier today. We were talking about, the podcast and everything, and he's looking forward to getting on here and doing what. But he's definitely a hard worker still out there. He's doing his thing. But that's what I miss, is that healthy competition between and everybody, because like once you're labeled, like you know what you're doing, you're competent, and it's like, yeah, that guy. Everybody wants to go to war with you on aircraft maintenance.
Yeah, and the crazy part about that is, though everybody knows you and knows that what you're capable of doing, sometimes you're run ragged. Like sometimes you are absolutely run ragged. Being deployed and downrange. They say you can't work more than 12 hours. Shit. Okay, hold my beer. Let's see. There was a 20-hour shift. There was a 24-hour shift. There was a 26-hour shift. No sleep, no nothing. Just trying to crank these things, because literally these things were going out. And you remember Calhoun?
Yeah. JJ.
Yep.
JJ.
He called me while he was in Afghanistan, and the B-1s had just dropped bombs, and he called me because he knew that I was in Qatar launching these aircraft and fixing them. And he told me to tell everybody in the shop, everybody in the unit, thank you, because it literally saved his life and others. And that gave me a sense. He had cross-trained from our career field into a different career field, which was down in the front lines. And when he did that absolutely, that was my enjoyment. That's what I enjoyed about being in, is hearing that, feeling that, seeing that, and knowing that those little things that we did help save people's lives downrange, and hopefully warheads on foreheads, because that's what we want to do. That's what our mission was.
Yeah.
Now going back a little, you're still in, but what do you enjoy? What did you enjoy about your time? And I say that sparingly because you're still in, so I know you still enjoy stuff. So you can give me what you enjoyed about your time to a certain extent, but you're still in. So give me also what you still enjoy now.
What I enjoyed then, it kind of goes into what I enjoy now. Just the mentorship. Like as you get seasoned, long in the tooth, experience all the things, that mentorship, and then you get in those positions to where you're actually leading, you're actually there with the guys, boots on the ground, like they respect you so much. If it's like, I got you, we got to pick up a broom, what we got to sweep, clean up, I got you. we got to go look for aircraft part or something, lost tool, something, I got you. Like showing that you're there with them and not just leading from the chair, as they say. Now my job is a little different. I see a wider range of scope, but I still get those calls. And I know you used to get them a lot too once you got out, and I still get some of those of like, hey, what's up with this? Or do you know anything on this? Or hey, what would you do in this situation? Because a lot of the B1 experience, like being there for 18 years, like I still get calls. I would get calls up to a year and a half, even now, after being gone, of people that were like, oh, like, you're not there no more. I'm like, no, I'm not. But I got you. I know who I can talk to or whatever you need. That means a lot because you're still contributing, you're still giving to the fight. And just that impression to know that people can like call on you and depend on you, that's what matters the most to me.
Nice. Yeah, it's a crazy thing when people call and ask those questions, like, you know, and you're providing that mentorship for them now. When, you know, a couple years ago, 10 years ago, you have those individuals, the Kempers, the who else, Arroyos, and you know, Olivas, and
Cedillo,
you know, Freddie, and like, you know, all those guys.
All
you know,
those
like
guys, like balls of knowledge, Buddy Manners, like all those balls of knowledge that, like, when we were growing up, we looked at them like, oh, those were sheet metal aircraft maintaining gods. And now, you know, as you know, you eventually pass the torch, and like for people to still reach out to you to know that you're there, like that is a great feeling, Mm-hmm. And that's why I hope, like, after it's all said and done, like, you could still contribute. Because going back to the losing identity, like, you miss that. You miss all that and the community and seeing all that. Because that's a majority of our lifetime. First quarter of our year of life.
You know, you were making mention of the identity, and when I was saying that earlier, my first 38 years on this earth, 20 were in the military, 18 were in the civilian world. So, you know, your frontal lobes don't fully develop until you're 24. Yeah. And at 18, I joined the military. So those last 6 years of my frontal lobe didn't fully develop until I was already 6 years in. And then I had another, 14 years on top of that. Yeah. So all I knew was military. Yeah. My formative years were nothing. You're at the back end of your formative years when you joined, and you're developing all that rest of the stuff. For me, it was one of those like, holy hell, like I just spent 20 years in the military, 18 civilian, but I was under my parents' roof, barely surviving and everything else. And now what do I do? And that's what really gets me is, even now, sometimes I'm like, damn, like I got this great job, I'm doing this great thing and everything else, but where's the camaraderie? Where are the people that, like I can't deploy. I mean, I'm going on a trip to Peru for work, and it's not a deployment. I'm not going to have people by my side being like, yo, let's go do this, or yo, hey, like I got to do this on my own, which, I mean, I don't care. Like, I don't mind it, but there's still not that camaraderie. In the civilian sector, you don't get any of that. Like, you don't get, people hang out, but it's not like, how many times do we, and we're going to call this out because we just talked about it, have parties, the cops get called, or we're doing stupid shit, or, one of the guys is laying in the bush.
Yeah, and to be fair with that, and going back to Oz, I know you said you thought it was me. That, to set that episode straight, Oz, that was not me that passed out in the bush. I'm not going to name names.
Maybe not that time. Yeah, there might have been a different time.
Yeah,
There was.
I passed out a number of times. We keep hitting this bottle, we're going to still stagnate the development of this frontal lobe. But that wasn't me that passed out in the bush. Going back to that episode, if you watch, you stay in tune, and you subscribe, which I tell everybody to subscribe, because what he's doing here, this is great. This is what a lot of us, especially average Joes, all branches, like this is a good release. It's a good to just get out and explain different perspectives of the military. I know we talked about it. You see a lot of operators going through all the things. Hey, that's cool. Like, I'm not knocking any of their stuff because they got great stories. But from what we see on the day-to-day grind for us to maintain aircraft as two alpha to be maintainers, like, I don't want to say you're grunts of Air Force or whatever, but we're out there trying to make it happen. And just gives you a little peek behind the curtain for what we do for a maintainer aspect and outside of whoever else he decides to interview. But
yeah. I mean, this has been a topic every person that I've talked to, with the exception of Jason, because Jason knows. Jason was an operator. You know, it's one of those, like, we're just the normal guys. We're just the guys that are going out there and doing the grind. I mean, if you look at stories of World War II, there's not a lot of maintainer stuff. It's all pilots. It's all, you know, people in the front lines and everything else, which is absolutely phenomenal. Like, there's a story to be told there. But then there's 18, 20, 24 hours that we're grinding that nobody even knows about. And we're giving each other shit. We're talking, you know, all kinds of crap. And you know, at the end of the day, we got to stagger home because we're tired and exhausted. But then we're grabbing beers together and we're saying, fuck it, let's do this again tomorrow. And we stay up till wee hours of the morning, take a quick nap, get up, shower, go to the gym, get back to work. Still the grind. And sometimes I miss that. Like, you don't even understand how many times Clemens was like, and I called him out, because I will call him out. Hey, what are you doing tonight? Bro, I just got off work. Well, I'm going to crack me open some beers. And then next thing you know, there we are.
Yep. And he was always there, ready to rock and roll. Wow. And you miss that. And that's the beauty of the military and why the why is stronger what it is because you meet so many different, you know, walks of life, so many cultures, beliefs, all the stories, and you meet, you know, a select few that you call your brothers that are like always there and are like in the shit, whatever your shit may be. For us, it was getting aircraft up and long hours and doing that, and that's our thing. Like, for operators, for everybody, that's their thing, and my hat is off to them. But our grind was a little different, and it's a high school education to fix those aircraft, those war machines, and it was a college education to break them, and that's what it is. Like, we get them ready for pilots. We expected no pat on the back, no thank you, but our gratitude was seeing that was our name on a repair that we did, and that aircraft met its mission.
Yeah, that was glorious, seeing that thing take off in Qatar. I mean, I don't know. Did you deploy to Qatar?
Yeah, I went to Qatar twice, Afghanistan twice, and one of those was for the year-long stint where that was a whole different ball game. Yeah. But
seeing those B-1s take off fully loaded and come back Winchester, which means that they dropped everything.
Yeah.
They dropped everything. That was a feat. Just like how I had mentioned about the A-10s in a previous episode, where they took off fully loaded, fully, you know, full of MUNs and rounds, and they come back Winchester, and you're just like, gives you a sense of pride. It gives you a sense of pride as to nobody. It's unequivocal in the civilian sector. I mean, I don't know who could say, wow, like this is a feat, unless you're in Skunk Works, you know, and doing that type of stuff. You know, that's crazy. What else did you enjoy, or did you, you know, what amazing leaders did you have that kind of help you gear? Because, you know, we talk about, you know, throughout the podcast or throughout, you know, just life in general, you have those individuals that you see them, that they're put in leadership position that weren't ready, or just horrible leaders. And I think we can mention multiple that we knew within the 6.5 years that I was there with you at Dias. But then you have the great leaders that just made an impact on people, or on your quality of life, or on the unit as a whole, on the, you know, the base as a whole. Like, you know, what leaders do you have that you look up to that you're just like, wow, they made such a great impact?
I'd hate to say that it's a short list of impactful leaders. I've had a lot of strong mentors. I know Colonel Goodyear when I was in Afghanistan doing the air advisor gig, like, that dude was old school and all about it, and that's what I loved. about him, my whole year as an advisor out in Afghanistan was probably, in retrospect, the most fulfilling for me, because it took me as a maintainer of structures to go out there and train Afghanistans and to set the record straight for a lot of people, like, you know, for the general populace. You look at Afghanistan and it's like, oh, you know, everybody's a terrorist, this, that, and the other. Well, I was like, I could beg to differ, because I've been around people. I had to learn Pashto. I had to sit in with an advisor. I made connections with people that were like, you know, they're no different than you or I. They're just trying to provide for their family. You can go to the deepest parts of like Chicago or Houston, and there's bad people everywhere. But for them to try to provide for their family, don't get me wrong, bad people everywhere. But that was probably my most eye-opening experience, to be in the grind with them, fixing Mi-17s, you know, Russian helicopters, bullet hole helicopters from there, getting them to go out and like try to support themselves, and then seeing that. But on the flip side of that, corruption is a big thing over there. They don't live by some of the principles and the standards and believe in like the things that we believe in, because at the end of the day, everybody's trying to survive. And going into history, you could look at what different things attribute to that, but I can speak on my time of being there was extremely eye-opening, because at any given day, your life was, you know, on a thread, because you're in there in precarious situations. You're in a sheet metal shop or in a hangar with an interpreter, and hoping that everything goes smooth. Lights would go out because they didn't have to run the power, and then you're stuck in the dark with all these guys. You don't know what's going to happen, and that happened on several occasions. So several times, but my mentality being over there was like, and this is kind of sadistic, I guess, to say, or dark, but it's like the best thing I could do is die for my country. And I mean that wholeheartedly, and I don't say that lightly, because it's like I signed up to do a job. I'm here doing a job. Every hero goes out on their shield, and I felt like if I go out, I went out at least doing something that I enjoyed. And it was teaching them how to do sheet metal and being in that environment.
Yeah, yeah. So you said Colonel
Goodyear.
Goodyear. Any others? You know, you definitely had a plethora. You mentioned quite a bit of them. You know, you had local leaders. I still think that Terry was one of probably the best people that you know. Yeah,
Terry Kemper was that was my papa, like growing up. He was my first raider coming in as a snot-nosed 18-year-old. I remember calling him. I was sitting in the middle of was it Texas Roadhouse? Or was the one with the bloomin' onion?
Oh no, you're talking about Logan's.
Was it Logan's?
Yeah.
I was in one of those steakhouse restaurants. I remember calling him, 18 years old, and I was like, "Hey, I think I made a mistake." And he was like, "What did you do?" He was a staff sergeant, Terry Kemper, then. I was like, "I think I used my GPC card. I accidentally paid for my meal." He was like, "Don't do anything. I'll be right there." And he paid for my meal and had them refund it to cancel everything out. But he was a mentor. He knew sheet metal. He was suiting up when he made it all the way up to master sergeant, still doing repairs. But aside from him, like, my mentor was, even to this day, is Stephen Olivas, Paco. And I tell anybody, I owe a lot to that guy. He would always quiz the hell out of me on different repairs, why I did it, like just quizzing me. But what I didn't realize then, because we're young, is that's what builds a better individual, a better maintainer, is to constantly poke at them and quiz them to be like, yeah, he had high expectations from me. And I like to think a lot of that paid off, to where I even do the same with some of my subordinates and even people now. Like, I quiz them on certain things. But he was very impactful in my career. Terry Kemper, Buddy Manners, the 1-1- Bunny Manners, he knew everything about that aircraft. And it was like, all right, like, I want to be like that. Like, I want that job. And you aspire to go into those roles, and when you do, you hope you don't let that legacy down. You hope you don't, lead it in the wrong direction. And hopefully, in my tenure there, I hope I've left such a legacy to where it's like, hey, it's what we do, man. That's how we are.
I hope these guys see this. I really hope. I'm gonna tag Buddy Manners. I don't have Terry on here. I don't know if you have Paco. Tag them. Tag these guys in it, because these guys were influential to all of us.
Yeah.
And I hope at some point that I can have them on the show, because I would love to see. I mean,
I don't think they know. Like, they probably know, but like, I don't think they really know. Like, when we were at Dias for the longest time, I tried to push like a Hall of Fame for those people. Like, you have a Hall of Fame and anything, but like those dudes that like put years in their time and their family, so many families, time, like you live with all these guys, blood, sweat, tears. You see kids grow up. We were talking about this right now because my kids are here with his kids, and Teo, and I remember all them when they were like small babies, and now it's just like, man, we're getting old.
Whoa, hold on there, bro. Slow your roll. Who's this we? You got a mouse in your pocket right now?
That's why I wear my hat.
See, look, full head of hair. Like, look at this. Look at this luscious.
Yeah, I'm not taking mine off. I'm not taking my hair off.
But it's amazing, because we were a family, and we have those guys that we still look up to. I mean, I still look up to Terry, to Kale, to Greg, to Austin.
Yeah, to Greg.
Like these guys were just phenomenal leaders, and we can go on and on and on about the people that influenced us and did those things.
Yeah, and you said you just did the interview with Cal too, like just a spot on dude. And the podcast before this, like I'm sure he gives. I can't wait to see that one. But we looked up to him too. It's like, man, you're doing things. Those people that moved and progressed, and like, hey, like these dudes are like the leaders of going forward. And now it's like our turn. It's like, all right, hopefully we don't fail.
No. Let's backtrack that. I didn't look up to him. He looked up to me. There was this one picture. There was this one picture that I absolutely love that I have is my first 8 to 10 years of being in the military. I deployed a lot. I was out doing things. I had gotten plenty of achievements and commendation medals and everything else. And we were in mess dress. And I remember this vividly. And this guy was like, he pointed at my, like the eye candy. And he pointed and he was like, what the fuck? Really, dude? And because you guys called me the Mexican General.
Mexican General? Yeah. Mexican General.
And it was one of those things where he was like, what have I done in my life? And I was like, obviously nothing, because
yeah.
But he'll end up watching this, and I always thought that was funny that he said that, and then you and John Carr made a little plaque. I still have the little plaque. It's like this big. It says Mexican General, and it's got a little bunny on it. And dude, I still have. Dude, it was just one of those. It was good times. I mean, I give him a lot of shit because I do admire him and what he's done and throughout his career. But just that one picture, like I still have the picture, and he's pointing at my ribbon rack like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, dude, sorry, you can't be fucking good, Like, yeah. See, these guys always gave me crap.
Because it was kind of fun. We would get him spun up. We'd spin his wheels, and it was all the expletives that came out of his mouth. But it was funny because at the end of the day, if you're a 2 Alpha, especially in our shop back then, our section, our flight, if you didn't give each other crap, then you weren't family. Like he didn't care for you. Everybody gave everybody crap.
I loved it, and that's one of the things that I really miss, that we talked about camaraderie and stuff. And that's why I wanted to do this with somebody that I spent a significant amount of time with, because that we have all those little stories, Hester, and I got to get Hester on this podcast too because
Oh, yeah.
that motherfucker, you know, and
He's doing big things too.
I'm
He's doing
happy
big
for him.
things
I'm happy for him.
up in DFW.
And you
I
know,
ran into. I saw him like was it about a year ago, and it was just like, and that's what goes back to, it goes to saying, like, you don't miss a beat, man. You see these faces of people. I saw him at one of the conferences. I saw my roommate from tech school at this conference. Haven't seen each other in years, and we just looked at name tags. Of course, we're a little bit bigger, a little bit healthier, a little less hair. But he looked at me and he's like, "When did you go to tech school?" And I looked at his thing. I was like, "Meyer?" I was like, "Oh my God, bro! Like we were roommates. We were in tech school." And that's the beauty of it. That I can hope I can express to everybody or anybody that watches it that's on the fence of like joining. Like you will build a brotherhood of individuals that got your back till the day you die, because it's different. I even told people, like, there's people I grew up in high school that I wouldn't trust with, you know, my dog or rabbit now, because I got, like, my daughter has 6 rabbits. But I wouldn't trust them with that because, like, it's a whole different feeling growing up with somebody, and especially if you deploy, that's a different brotherhood, man.
that is. It's one of those that you always have each other's back. I just hung out with 2 individuals the other day, and we shot him over a picture because he wasn't able to make it. Poor guy.
Yeah.
But 2 individuals that we were stationed in Dias with, and when I come into town, every once in a while I'm able to hang out with them, and we were able to hang out, and just the stories that were getting told and the shit that was talked, and I don't know, man. They seem to fucking talk all kinds of shit to me, and I'm just like, I'm the innocent. No, I'm not the innocent one. That's why they're talking shit. But it's you never miss a beat. Like, you never miss a beat. Like, Korean Jesus is a fucking thing. You know, it's a fucking thing. And he's seen him.
Yeah.
You've seen Ben, and he's got long locks, and you know, he's just
Love you, Ben.
I'm gonna tag him on this shit too.
Yeah.
Like, this dude, he also needs to be on one. He hasn't been. He was in the military on and off for quite some time, but
But he still plays a pivotal role. I remember my one signature thing with Ben is, like, we were working a repair, and I was, you know, structures beat to fit, paint to match, and I was beating a repair, and mind you, I had been in already for like 6 years, 7, 8 years. And he comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, why don't you go take this over here to the Vetandbeer, or go bend this up like that?" And I just put my hammer down, and I looked at him, I was like, "Ben," and if he's watching this, I was like, "I love you to death, but this is what I was thinking," and I think you remember what I told you. I was like, "I've been doing this since you had hair on your balls. So let me do my thing." And then he had to stop and think about it, and he was like, you know, Texas math, he had to take off a boot. But he was like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been doing this since before you hit puberty, bro. Like, I got it."
Oh shit.
But yeah, I remember running into him. I still, you know, when Oz lives here, but I mean, we're all busy. I know he's a busy guy, and I need to meet up with him. The day you called, I was genuinely like, I was tired. It was turn and burn, but
No, that's fine. At some point, I'll be down here without the kids, and we can, you know, go out and have, you know, drinks and everything else. That's the beauty. That's the beauty, is we don't miss a beat. Like, again, I haven't seen you in 3 years, and it's just story after story after story. I mean, he even said it. You know, we've seen our kids when they were little, babies, kids. I mean, we're about to recreate a picture in here in a little bit, and this is a camaraderie we have. I mean, one of my best friends, I hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. And I ran into, you know, like, he comes down to Tucson to go to another friend's, Tim, who I, you know, like, did podcast with. And he's best friends with him. So, like, we got this weird little, I don't want to say a love triangle, but, you know, it's, and now I hang out with Tim quite often. And, we didn't even miss a beat. We did not miss a beat. And it was just like, you motherfucker. Like, we're really going to do this still? Like, let's do it, you know? And, God, that's the beauty of of what we do.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And like getting in more into the questions, I know you question us and everything, and I know you have your own set of, you've done your own single podcast where you talk about it, but have you done it for you? I know you talk about what's your why. I know you may have expressed it earlier in some of the podcasts, but for you, like looking back with some of these questions, like you would ask yourself, like for you, like
I have.
like what kept you doing as long as you did? Like what do you like? What do you miss?
Oof.
What are the things you would take back? Because like I don't know if any of the people that you've asked, like to you, because this is a give and take. But
it is.
I think for them, it's valuable to be like, hey.
I have mentioned my one regret, and I think everybody at this point knows that I towards the end of my year I got in a little bit of trouble, which wasn't even like really trouble. I broke curfew accidentally, and I lost a stripe, and that led me to get out. But like that regret question, and then that would I change anything? The regret question. All the things that I did in my career, the one thing that I regretted was I didn't eat fish that straight up came out of the sea, and they, in Okinawa, and the boat captain cut up a piece of sushi and gave it to me. And I didn't eat it. That was my one regret in my whole career, and that's with getting in trouble and doing everything else. Would I change anything? I think after listening to people and the questions that I've asked, I would change a couple small things. But I think it would be to not get fired up as much, or to not. Like I just talked this last, where you remember where your homeboy came in.
Did you talk to that with Cal?
Yeah. I talked a little bit, but I'm gonna still say it.
Fired.
Man, in formation, remember old boy came in with his earrings?
Yeah. Was that my truth?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
We don't have to talk about that.
No, we are. He came in and I lost my shit. Like, how loud was I? I mean, people in the other freaking building heard me. I was, what the fuck is this motherfucker doing in my fucking goddamn formation? And I was loud. Would I change that? I don't know. I think sometimes I was a little too harsh on people that I probably should have been a little kinder to. And then other times I'm like, I shouldn't have been as kind to that person, because that motherfucker.
In that retrospect, I mean, it depends, because some people may have taken that and then totally flipped it around and made the good for him. When you say that with it, because I remember that distinctly, because I was standing up there with you, and they're like, "Whose troop is that?" I was like, "Oh God!" I wasn't even gonna say anything, and everybody was like pointing to me, like, "Hey, it's." And I was like, "Yep, that's my troop." I was like, "I got it." But even so, like with the Geyer, I don't know if you were there. The Geyer incident, like, which I know he's out, doing things. I know where he's at, know what he's doing, and love him to death. That's my dude. Another one. But he was my troop. Got caught speeding. He had an RX-8, caught speeding, this, that, and the other. Remember they came in, some other senior NCO came in, was griping about him, and everywhere in roll call, they were like, this individual, and then like, they're like, whose troop is he? And I was like, and we wore reflective belts. So I did what I grew up on and knew was like, my dad would whip my ass. So I took my reflective belt on, and in the middle of roll call, went up there and in front of everybody just started spanking him 3 times. It's like, don't do that again. And then went back into formation. Nowadays, that is, you can't do that. You can't do that nowadays. No. But after that, he remembered that. He went on for a while. He PCS'd to a couple spots, did great, was doing good things, but then he decided, it was time for him to get out. He took a contractor job, and he's doing great things, but he's even told me that, and I'm like, man, it was just out of the whim. Nowadays, you can't do that, but, you can't do things what we grew up on, the shenanigans, because we had a lot of shenanigans, and I think that's what made it great. Is because we did a lot of things, and the practical jokes, and it just made that camaraderie with everybody that much more. Because when Friday came and it was time to go drink beers, we drank beer, and it was good. Nowadays, nobody does that. You don't hang out. You're afraid of getting in trouble. Nobody goes in. And I'm trying to get into that political aspect, but that's what it is. Like, people are concerned more about, career progression, this, that, and the other. But that's me being truthful.
Yeah, which is absolutely fine. But I think it was a different time and a different era, and I think everybody says that. Everybody says that. When I came in, there was a master sergeant that I ended up spending a short amount of time with, and then some tech sergeants that I went TDY with and everything, and they said that when they came in, it was a different time. And then I met some individuals that were in the Vietnam era that said it was a completely different time. And everybody's got their time. Everybody's got their moments. Like, things change. Everything absolutely evolves. Ever evolving, just ever evolving service. You're always doing something different. And that's the beauty, is those guys, who maybe you didn't think, and you told Ben, hey, like, I've been doing this since you got hair in your balls, like, I get that, but maybe he was right, because I did learn a lot from these younger kids. I did learn a lot, which I don't want to ever say that, because then these little fucking kids are going to get their fucking heads inflated. But, and I say younger kids, these are men right now. Like, Benny might have said something a couple times, and I finally listened to him, and it worked. But don't ever fucking tell Benny that shit, because Benny's gonna get a big old head.
Yes, you do, Benny. He reminds me of days in QA, and I ride him up. But they look at all that, like, they grow up in it. They look at it, and to be fair to what you said, like, that generation that's now going on forward, they're gonna say the same thing that we're saying, and it's beautiful. It really is. Like, it really is, because times change. Even now in the Air Force, it is changing so much, and all branches are changing.
And
so
you know
much.
what? They're working smarter, not harder. And we kind of did a little bit of both, But things evolve, and I appreciate that. I mean, look what. Yeah. When I say evolution, I mean, let's talk about evolution of flight. You go from just barely getting off the ground to we're about to have some of the most sophisticated things, and it's not even out yet, and that's just that evolution of it's constantly changing, and I love that, and I love that if my son or my daughter decide to go in, they're gonna have a completely different mentality than what I had. My daughter, she plays softball, and she was just explaining this to me the other day as a little example, that people in the softball field, like a couple years ago, even up to last year, her voice, like, projects when she's out in the softball field. And she's like, Dad, and she's 13. She's like, Dad, I learned it from you, because I've seen you around your people. I've seen you, and Dad gets after them, but understands and helps them build. And I'm like, it's a proud dad moment. I mean, you heard her out there. She's got a little witty ass attitude and a little sassiness, but when she said that, I was like, who the fuck is this kid? But that might translate into something later on down the road where she's absolutely pushing forward with whatever she's got going on, Yeah. And I appreciate that, and I know, like, you do as well with these young kids, because they're like our kids. Like, I think I spent more time with this dude than I did my ex-wife. Like, we literally spent 10, 12, 14 hours a day, and then I'd go to the gym, and then I'd be home, spend, like, sleep and a couple hours with her, and then, like, I spent more time with him and the rest of the guys. So it's just crazy. I do miss that a lot. I do miss it a lot, but
it is. It was a lot. It was a simpler time. It was a great time. Yeah. And it was just more about grinding and camaraderie, which you can talk to several of the guys or anybody that we talk to. Like, a lot of that is lost. A lot of it is lost to be in to serve for a purpose. And I'm not saying with everybody, but I'm speaking primarily to those that have experienced it, and those that are in now or have just recently got out, that just see that it's like the gratification was doing your job and being the best at it. and putting your name to it to where everybody knew, like, that's the dude. And I feel from what I have seen is there's very few and far between that are like, hey, I want to be the guy. And you got to find those guys, and you got to bring them up and promote them and make them like, hey, this is what you can be. And that's what I hope to achieve even now, or if I go back out to the field, like that's where it's at.
Now, we're coming to an end, and you know, like, this is great because I've reminisced a lot. So I know so has he. But now as we come to the end, give me a little bit, for the viewers, of advice to past, present, and future. So you got, you know, the people that are out, not necessarily retirees, but veterans in general. The present, those that are in, like yourself. And the future, potentially my kids, you know, potentially your kids, potentially some of our friends' kids. What would you tell them? Like, you know, those that just got out, what would you tell them? Like, what do they need to know, or what advice would you give them?
For those that have just got out, I would say, I know for those of us that have been in and have gotten out, or like, oh, you get approached by the vet or somebody that, you know, that's been in, and like they I don't want to say it's like, oh, they talk your ear off, or they tell you their stories. Do that. And for those that are in or coming up, listen to those stories, because there's a lot you can learn. Like, don't blow them off, don't think of it, but for those that have been out, like, tell your story, tell where you've been, even if it's just quick, brief, you know, hey, like, because that camaraderie is there. Like, that camaraderie is important to everybody. For those of us that are still in, biggest thing, don't forget where you came from. That is the number. Don't forget where you came from. You're never too good to push a broom. You're never too good to put coveralls on. You ask everybody I work with now, and in my job, in my Jeep, I have a pair of coveralls.
Really?
In the back of my Jeep, and I'm not lying. Like, I tell everybody, like, even for what it is and what I do, I know it's not out of my scope of work, but I'm like, I'll go throw those coveralls on. Don't be afraid to throw the coveralls on. That's what I got. That's that. For those that are coming up, hey, you gotta grind. You gotta grind hard, and you gotta be innovative. Because now, moving forward, it's being innovative. It's the new tech. It's the new thing. There's a lot that us that have been doing it for a long time can learn from you. So do what you do. Don't sacrifice who you are as a person, but you gotta grind. You want to earn the respect of the older individuals, so you can put in that elbow grease. But at the same time, show you're innovative and you're thinking outside the box. And that'll win any respect for anybody that's still doing it, and the older school individuals to say, okay, you're taking it to the next level.
Damn, that innovation. Like, I didn't even think about that. That's not one thing that I think I've heard in this podcast. Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us that know, I don't wear coveralls. This guy, I'll put on the coveralls. You don't need coveralls? I'll go all there like this. Fuck it, let's do this. I won't get dirty. He will, but
It's in the name. It's in the name.
Dirty.
Yeah, and we used to joke. I know we talk about Clemens a lot because that's my boy. I just talked to him this morning. We used to joke around with him to say, like, oh, like, he goes out and just finds a wheel well or something and just gets dirty on purpose, like, just to make it seem like he's working. But
no, that motherfucker worked.
He worked.
But
that's my boy.
But he could walk into the shop and the dust bunnies would gravitate to him. The grease would somehow end up on his face. And I'm like, dude, what did you fucking touch? Like, dude, you literally heard roll call. I was over there by the parts. Like, so did the fucking part hit you in the face and just slid down and then you got grease? I don't understand. But yeah. But I want to say I really appreciate it. This is good.
Long time coming. Long time coming. We tried to link up on several occasions, but my schedule, his schedule, he's obviously very busy and traveling every which way, trying to do and then support this podcast. And again, I go to promote, like, if you're not following, for anybody out there, follow this. this is great. Even if you don't relate to any of this, there may be something that you can gain from this. And it's a good thing that he's doing for everybody, for all of us that have been in and have been doing this. And just, it gives us an escape. And I think that's what a lot of other veterans need, is like an escape to just sit down, have a beer or have whiskey, and just talk about, you know, life experiences and things. If you get something from it, hey, good for you. If not, then go to another podcast.
But the stories, so when your children, when the three of them,
they're not hearing any of my stories.
I know, but they don't have to hear those stories. Yeah. This is not, it's not, you know, rated anything but PG-13. Yeah. You know, they don't. I was talking to Kale about this. Kale's dad was a lieutenant colonel, and as I was talking to him, you know, or a retired lieutenant colonel, you know, they have that special connection, but Kale hasn't talked to his kids or anything about this type of stuff. So for them to hear this, like, I've gotten feedback from kids of people that I've done interviews for, and they say like, wow, I didn't know this about my dad. Now I understand why. And this is what helps them. This is what helps them, because they don't know. They were young when we were doing these pendejadas or buffoonery or whatever you want to consider. True. But when they see this, they're going to know dad was out there doing shit. Like, dad, I didn't understand. I have a conversation with my kids every once in a while about my military service, and they're like, you did that, Dad? Yeah. Like, I've fucking done a lot of things, but you don't know. But at least it's on tape, and they can watch it and see who you are. And this is why I do this, because I get it. Like, I'm busy and I have other things, but to me, this is an escape. This is kind of a therapy for me. But in the same token, you have something on the internet that's captured that your kids can go back and watch and see like, oh, dad did some amazing things. Absolutely. I mean, you know, so that's why I want to do this. It's telling your story. It's telling your why. Like, your kids are your why. And do they know that? I guarantee you they don't. I guarantee you they don't. They will. And that's why I want this to be out there. Because this right here, this has made me do this. And it will continue to allow me to do this. This is free. This is free 99. But I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for the drinks. Cheers. And as I close this out, I'm gonna challenge you guys. If you get an opportunity, and I said this in my last podcast, I will create a Facebook page for this, What's Your Why? But I want comments, I want likes, I want shares. And I'm not doing this to try to make a fucking buck. I don't give a shit about the money. I give a shit about stories. This guy right here, this guy. I give a shit about what happens out there. And we all have that story. We're all common Joes, but we're not common. We have done things that most people could only imagine. And we weren't even operators. We were just out there doing our grind. And people in the civilian sector don't quite understand that. And that's what I'm trying to get at right here. Like, we need to let our story out. So please, like, share, comment, and just spread the word. And as I always put a plug in, if you're having difficulties, reach out. You have resources. You can always reach out to me. I look at my YouTube often. I look at my Facebook often. You can reach me. Pedro Vasquez. I'm probably Pedro Vasquez, who knows, probably number one, because I'm it. But reach out. Don't be afraid to say that you need help. Please. 44 a day is way too many. 1 a day is way too many. So please take care of yourselves. I have drinks, but if you don't have drinks, please be careful. And I will talk to you guys soon. Hey, have a good one. Love you guys.
Cheers.